Welcome back. The last 2 weeks have been a big focus on momentum for me because starting momentum is incredibly difficult. That beginning of a build where there's nothing that flows on its own yet, it all requires your effort. And then keeping it because once you have it moving, you want to make sure that it's not depending on motivation to continue. And then how do you redirect it? When the piece you want to move isn't going to do it, is there a way that you can switch paths and keep the momentum that you're on instead of having it stop and trying to start again? Welcome to Tessera, a podcast by Tesseros. Here, we're learning in the workshop of everyday life. Small adjustments, simplified workflows, creative ideas explored instead of ignored. Each episode, I share real stories from home and work as I experiment with technology and AI, not to chase perfection, but to build systems that support what actually matter. Because when our systems support us, we create space for the things that shape us. I'm glad you're here to build this mosaic. Let's place the next piece. Early in my career, I worked at an accounting firm, and the owner wanted to redesign the accounting process. So when you're doing your taxes, there's all sorts of different pieces that go into making up the whole picture. Things like accounts payable and accounts receivable and payroll and assets. These are all just components. And so the vision was that if we could truly identify each segment of a file, then instead of having one senior person prepare the entire thing, you could have specialists at lower prices do the pieces of it. We also had staff that had family in the Philippines. And so if we could truly niche down into this siloing attempt, then we would be able to have some of the work carried through overnight so that when we got to work the next day, we would be able to pick up where they had left off and it would have nice, clean divisions. And so this momentum could be continued. So what we did is it was a family run firm. And so we went to the partner's house and we rolled out a long stretch of paper. I think that kind of roll of paper you get from school. And we taped it to the kitchen wall and got coffee going and we had snacks and we got a whole batch of Post-it notes. And we started by writing every part of the process on the Post-it note and then sticking it on the wall. And the nice thing about doing it this way is the more that you start to define a process, the more you start to realize how many pieces that you've skipped in your brain. And doing it on Post-its meant that we could move them over once we realized that we had missed something. And then once we felt like we had all of the high level process, not just on creating the file, but even how does it move within the firm? How does it get started? When do we reach out to clients? When does it go to administration? We wrote the entire process down and then all of the subparts that were core to make sure that we would teach within a process. And after we finished, we rolled it up, brought it back to work, and on Monday made it a new layout template in our accounting software. The thing that was really cool about this is once we had it in the accounting system, we could test it in real life. And there were parts that stuck and some that didn't. But the experience of learning how to break down a process and look at it from different points of view and how do you keep momentum on something that can be quite dry was really exciting and interesting. And it changed how I look at problems forever. And I think that's a design side of momentum is how you keep it moving. And then there's the physical side of momentum too. That's shown up just in my own household. We have a bike trail behind the house. And we live in a very mountainous area. So if you're biking in our city, you are climbing hills. But this one particular spot in the path goes down and then swoops up. You see both the short and the long right in front of you. And my younger son gets nervous because the top of this little section here is a little bit gravelly, it's slippy. And so if you stop and walk, you slip on the gravel and the steepness. And so he's afraid to ride it because he knows he'll slip. But the challenge is that if he actually rode, if he kept his momentum down the hill, it would carry him over 3/4 of the way up the next section. And with one or two pedal strokes to maintain that momentum, he would be over it and he wouldn't slip because he's going fast enough. And so we're trying to teach him that you can control your speed, you can slow down, but if you stop or you go too slow, it is really hard to go again. My older son actually has a different problem, and that's that when he sees his younger brother slip, he automatically assumes that he can't do it. And so we're trying to teach him that someone else's stuck point doesn't automatically mean that it's going to be his. Everyone has to find out what they're good at. And if you can keep some speed and learn how to pivot a little bit, you don't have to stumble, and you probably won't stumble where someone else is. But both of these are about keeping something moving once it's already going. Sometimes the piece you want to move just won't move, no matter how well designed or how much momentum it's carrying. And that's this third aspect of redirecting momentum. It's one that I'm living through in the business right now. I have been trying to put together a game for this AI competition that I was working at, and it had a hard deadline of August. And I had my own deadline set for the last Thursday of the school year so that when the kids went home, I was completely done on the game. But I've been stuck on the concept for weeks. It's an idea problem, not a build problem. I mean, there will be a build problem. I don't know how to do that either. But right now, I don't have an idea that feels worth building, and the deadline is sitting there unresolved. So I decided to pivot and try to keep moving, even though I was stuck on this core business idea. And so what I did instead was I thought, okay, well, what is everything that I have on my plate right now? And how do I get all the aspects of my business in order so that when the idea comes, the business itself is running stable and I can focus then on the game generation? And so what I did was I gave all the loose ends that were sitting in my brain into Claude, and I asked it to create me a to-do list and prioritize it based on urgency with an identification of what could I be utilizing AI better for. Right now I use it conversationally, but I kind of feel like I've plateaued with what I can do there. And I know there's a lot of people getting into agents and coding and co-work, and these are all aspects that I've never worked with but have been interested in. And now that I have this problem of I can't do the product that I want to do, I can get the business working how I want to. And so one of the issues in mine was that my company has been through 3 iterations. My web pages are all over the place. And so I got it to help me build an agent to review my entire website, go through page by page, make sure they're findable, which they weren't, and then identify where the wording was an inconsistent audience, where I broke my own writing standards. And I got an audit report that afterwards I was able to go through page by page of the website and actually fix the things that have been outstanding, where I knew there were problems, but like, where do you get started? That was a way I could do it. And so the game concept is still stuck, but at least the business improved. I think a lot about harmony, not balance. It's one capability that you can use everywhere, and the same design on, how we're doing our biking or our filing or a website audit, how we keep momentum in all parts of our life, not just one. And I have found that balance for me tends to mean two things in equal parts, and that's just never been how my brain works. I'm all in on a project. And so I do a bare minimum on things that have to be kept moving so that I can focus on where my brain is right now. And sometimes you need to pivot. Not every piece will be ready to move at the same time on the same schedule. Some things you can push right away, but sometimes you need to set it aside and work on a different piece instead. I think it's a skill not forcing every piece to move at once and know what you're working on right now and what is getting you those extra returns for your energy. So for this week's Tessera, I want you to think about these 3 aspects of momentum. And which do you need this week? A way to start, a way to keep it going, or a way to redirect it to something that won't move as planned? Pick the one that works for you and get the smallest version of it started today that you can. I hope you have a great week. Thanks for listening to Tessera. If this episode sparked an idea or helped you forge a new path, we'd love to hear it. Tessera is built by community. Send us your questions, feedback, or stories about how you're using AI and other technologies to simplify your life. Email us at hello@tesseros.com or leave a review on the app where you're listening right now. And if you know someone who's looking to craft their life a little bit differently, please share this episode with them. You can find all episodes, show notes, and extras at tesseros.com/Tessera and subscribe through your preferred podcast app. Until next time, keep placing the pieces that matter.